After steeping ourselves in this week's news, I think we're going to hit the St. Patrick's Day Irish whiskey a little early. Welcome to MOMocrats Mama Chat, part of the DemCast family of podcasts. I'm Donna Schwartz Mills with Aliza Worthington and Karoli of crooksandliars.com. And Aliza, you get a pinch! You get a pinch!
I know.
How about you? How do I get a pinch if I'm not wearing?
Oh, you don't have to. Everybody's Irish on St. Patrick's Day. Don't you know that?
I don't find that. Is everybody Jewish on Rosh Hashanah? I don't get.
No, but that's different. You don't like
drinking holiday.
Yeah, it's yeah. I mean, you know.
Wait, do my nails count as sort of green?
Yeah,
maybe. Okay. All right. We won't pinch you. It's
you
all
pinch
good.
Me back now you can give me back my pinches.
No,
yeah.
That's all right.
Listen, I used to have to go around with my kids, my Irish dancing kids to schools and pubs and everywhere else. It was a full week of things that we used to have to do. So for St. Patrick's Day. So I kind of miss it and I kind of don't. Mm-hmm. It's like a little bit of both.
Yeah, well, it was work and fun at the same time, you know?
Yeah, that's true.
Yep.
So what do we want to talk about? The fun or the not so fun?
Well,
let's start with the fun.
Well, the fun is, among other things, today, Beryl Howard, the one of the judges that's overseeing, I guess it's Jack Smith's investigation, the federal investigation, ruled that Evan Corcoran, you know, what he did with the Mar-a-Lago paper, testifying that everything was given back when it wasn't, meant that there was no attorney-client privilege. And so now he needs to talk to the grand jury.
Right. That's a big deal because she's basically saying that's the crime fraud exception, boys and girls. And, you know, if he'll be lucky if he's not disbarred, but he'll have to definitely testify.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's fun. And of course, there's
he has to talk to the Mar-a-Lago grand jury, to the grand jury that's investigating the
Jack Smith grand jury.
Jack Smith grand jury, right? Because there's so many Trump grand juries, it's hard to keep track.
The thing is,
seriously,
Jack Smith's one is the DOJ one.
Yeah,
and that's the one that also is looking at January 6th as well. Yeah. It's like all of those federal crimes.
Yeah,
possible alleged federal crimes.
Yeah, we have to say alleged.
Alleged. Are under there, but
we all know.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, Mar-a-Lago documents, they're all there. The attorney swore there weren't any. I mean, I don't know. What's alleged about that, right? So,
really.
I mean, all of this appears to be coming to a head at the same time.
Well, you know how you can tell. But you know how you can tell, right? Is how deeply the freak out on Truth Social is. And I am here to tell you the freak out is deep right now.
Is it really? Because I rely on our pal Conover over at Crooks and Liars to she's the Truth Social sacrificial lamb. She belongs to it and she follows it, and God bless her for it. She must have an iron stomach or something. But I mean,
I think she thinks it's better than watching his rallies. That's how she feels
that's
about
true.
It. She can handle the text better than she can do the rallies.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, no, she's written several things this week. He's just like losing his shit all over the place about.
Love it.
Yeah,
love
about that.
You
love to see it. So, and
couldn't happen to a nicer fascist,
right? And there's a lot of things going on. So New York is preparing for the possibility that he'll be indicted by the Manhattan DA.
Mm-hmm.
And he'll have to turn himself in person for that.
Yeah.
And that will be, I personally feel like he should have a perp walk. I mean, I just feel like that's
only fair.
Right. Like,
I think we deserve that, don't we?
We're owed that.
Millions
as far as
I'm
concerned.
Would want to see that.
And I'm certain that the Manhattan DA would actually like it too. But they'll probably, let him just turn himself in and, get fingerprinted and mugshotted and then released to his own, his own devices or something. And honestly, I have to say, there's so many worse things that happened than that Stormy Daniels payoff that I feel like I really want to hear more about the other things. I don't want it to get buried in the noise about the Stormy Daniels thing, but we'll see. I mean, any indictment is better than no indictment. So
you mean there are worse things that happened than the payoff in that whole Stormy Daniels transaction?
Not in that whole stint. Yeah, no, just
there
in
are
general.
other things in New York that have happened that are worse than the Stormy Daniels story.
Yes.
Okay, and that's what you want.
Lifelong criminal.
No, I understand that. I just wanted to make sure I knew what Karoli was saying.
Yeah.
Yes.
There are so many things.
Right.
It's what they think they can get a conviction on.
Mm-hmm.
And so if that is what gets the ball rolling, I am okay with it.
I'm all for it. Do it.
We found out this week because the Atlanta Constitution Journal published a story based on interviews with the Fani Willis grand jury, some of those members, that there was a third recorded phone call, this one of Trump calling the head of the state legislature, and asking them to throw out the votes and
overturn the election.
And he's going, well, what would stop you from holding a special legislative session? and
I don't know, maybe the truth.
The law.
He said a federal judge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
that too.
And he had the foresight to record that too.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a pattern.
Yeah.
There's a pattern in Georgia. You suppose the same pattern probably exists in Arizona and Wisconsin too.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that we're not hearing about it in those states.
Right.
Yeah.
Why
not, do you think?
Because, well, in the case of Arizona, Republicans were in charge.
Yeah.
And so, the only one, the Speaker of the House testified that he got pressure.
Okay.
So we know that, but we don't know, everybody else covered up for him. Basically, the governor covered up the fact that there was evidence that, was clearly that Trump lost the election, and he was out there lying about it, even though it's sworn, otherwise in private. So, and in Wisconsin, their Republicans are so freaking messed up. I don't even know. I mean, they're just bad. They're terrible.
This might be a good time to mention the Supreme Court race in Wisconsin.
Yes.
Where that's going to be on the election is April 4th.
Okay.
And let's just put it this way: if the Democrat wins, Wisconsin has a shot. If the Republican wins, Wisconsin is lost.
Yeah, that's about right.
Yeah. I
mean, and that's in the context of election administration and integrity, because if the Republican wins, then it'll tilt the Supreme Court to Republicans, and they'll just steal the election like they have in the past.
Right.
And by that, I don't mean that they'll steal it in votes. They'll suppress the vote enough.
Yeah.
They'll say enough people can't vote that and it'll be gone forever. I don't think we'd ever get it back. But I say that, but let me just qualify that by saying, Michigan, right? 10 years ago, Michigan seemed lost forever, right? It had a Republican legislature. It had a Republican governor. They had passed right to work laws. They had done all kinds of, the Michigan electorate had actually said no right to work laws, and they just went ahead and passed them anyway. Yeah. And so, but this week, after the midterms, they have a Democrats control everything, and they're repealing the right to work law. Yeah. So we should probably not say that a state is lost.
Write it off. Forever.
Yeah. For this cycle, let's put it that way.
Yeah.
The changes Scott Walker imposed on Wisconsin were deadly.
Yeah, they were. They were terrible. there was a reason that Scott Walker they tried to, recall him, and I wish it worked because he was awful for that seat. Awful.
Yeah. And, what's happening in Michigan is great, but that is why you keep having these plots to kidnap Gretchen Whitmer. There was another one.
More.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep, last week.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, it shows you the desperation with which these right wingers are willing to go. I read something today online. I'll see if I can find it. A January 6th defendant had a whole plan to take over the government on Christmas Eve. And it was terrifying.
It was terrifying. And can you believe they only gave him 2 years?
I know.
They only sentenced him to 2 years and 2 years probation on top of that.
Right.
Where was this? What state?
Texas.
Yeah, of course. Of course it was Texas.
Well, I guess I can believe that then, in that case.
But it was the list of his plan for what to do was utterly terrifying.
Oh my God.
It truly was.
And, he's just right out there saying, I'm going to kill Democrats, basically. And
right. We're going to kill Democrats. We're going to take over the government. And, everybody's going to basically bow down to us or else.
Right.
Well, in Texas, that's not nearly as bad as an abortion.
I know. Well, exactly.
Those women deserve the death penalty.
That's North Carolina, but
whatever.
Texas agrees with that.
Texas probably agrees,
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm sure I look weird, but there's a dog underneath my desk who really needs me to pet her. So.
Oh, how funny!
I'm sure
we haven't seen the new dog yet, so we need to see the new dog.
Hello, Penny.
You gonna come out? Oh, hello.
Hello, Penny.
Hello.
Oh. What a big old sweetheart.
She's a good girl.
She's adorable.
Yes, she's a very nice puppy. Yes. Proof that I wasn't doing anything untoward under my
The thought had never crossed my mind.
No, but it may have crossed other people's minds. Yes. So here's Penny. Everybody meet Penny.
Yeah.
She's doing a good job. She's a very good baby girl, but she was forcing me to pet her kepi, her head under the.
Well.
Here it is.
I couldn't say no.
So this was the plan of Larry Brock from Texas. If Congress fails to act on the 6th of January. So he wrote this out, I guess, on Christmas Eve, but this was basically his plan for sedition should Congress not take the election away from Biden. Right. Seize all Democratic politicians and Biden key staff and select Republicans, including McConnell. Begin interrogations using measures we used on Al-Qaeda to gain evidence on the coup. Have General Flynn get in touch with President Trump and have him declare a state of insurrection exists to provide color of law to our actions. In other words, to bless what they were doing. Seize national media assets and key personnel. Zuckerberg, Jack, CNN, lead and talking head, seize WAPO and NYT editors, eliminate them. Media silence except for White House communications. Present slate for clean elections to existing Congress and make sure they sign. Let the Democratic cities burn. Cut off power and food to all who oppose us. Establish provisional government in rebellious states and representatives we can count on. Cease all foreign aid except for key allies as determined by Trump. General pardon for all crimes up to and including murder of those restoring the Constitution and putting down the Democratic insurrection. And then there's some qualifiers. Don't kill law enforcement officers unless necessary. Gas would assist in this if we can get it. Attempt to capture Democrats with knowledge of coup instead of killing them. Shoot and destroy enemy communications nodes and key personnel. I mean...
Can I point out that both times he used the correct terminology for democratic?
Yeah.
He said democratic cities instead of Democrat cities.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So I feel like he's got some chance at redemption. He's got some redeeming qualities.
No. No. I think
that's why my jaw dropped when he said
military, and he just knows the correct terminology.
I'm kidding. I'm referring, of course, to Raskin's absolute.
Oh, that was great.
That was
roasting of
that was
Lauren
delicious.
Of Bobo for
Bobo. Yeah, you know, she's been quiet this week. Marjorie Taylor Greene's been flapping her gums.
Maybe they take turns. You know,
Bobert's been pretty quiet, so I don't know. Anyway, that was a guy that got 2 years, 2 freaking years
in Texas.
So I mean,
but who's the judge who sentenced?
I don't know.
I don't know.
It's probably, you know, Trevor McFadden or somebody that, you know, doesn't give long sentences. But none of them have really gotten long sentences. And we're getting to a point where it's like, if we don't get to the planners of this thing, right? If we don't get, like, these still are the soldiers in the streets. Let's get to the people.
Yeah, we haven't gotten to like Enrico Tarrio and the, you know.
Right.
Well, they're being tried now.
Yeah, they are. But also,
but I mean, we haven't gotten.
How about if we get to, you know, the people who incited it?
Yeah.
In the first place.
What's the longest? So for 7 or 8 years or something for one of the ones who attacked the police officer. Right. So for I mean, yeah.
It bothers me because if these were black men who did this, they would get 20 and 30 years. They wouldn't get.
These are black men who sold, you know, marijuana. Well, exactly. Now, you know, this was, let alone incited
a riot or an insurrection.
Planned insurrection activities.
Yeah, there would have been National Guard.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, definitely. There would have been.
Well, just look at the Lincoln Memorial when there was a Black Lives Matter.
Exactly.
Yes, exactly. So. Anyway, I know I kind of put us off the track there, but I just had to share that.
That's, I mean,
so shocking.
There is no track.
We need to maintain our capacity for shock.
Yeah.
Right.
And sometimes the only way to do that is to really like listen to this language.
Yeah. And as I was saying earlier, or to Karoli before we went on, the background noise of fascism all over the world right now. It's hard to pay attention to any one thing. You know, you see what is happening in Iran, where they're poisoning female students.
Yeah.
And you see what is happening in Israel, where Netanyahu is trying to get rid of the judiciary.
Yep. Totally neutering it. Totally neutering the judiciary.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then, you know, in France, where it looks like a revolution because Macron is trying to ram through a higher retirement age.
This is something I've been thinking about a lot. Like, why? Why is he doing this?
I'm not paying attention to France. What's going on there?
So this has been brewing for a while, and it is that their what is their equivalent of Social Security, which now has a retirement age of 62, is it needs financial infusions. And the only thing, so he wants to raise the retirement age to 64, and I think it's because he doesn't have parliament that he controls.
Right.
So this is the least worst option that he sees on the table, which is why he's trying to shove it through
without parliament.
Without parliament, right? But obviously, and I mean, I'm thinking to myself in my position, if that was happening here, I would be furious, and I would be out in the streets too, and everything else. So he's trying to put this through under a provision where he can do it without parliament, but they can call for a no confidence vote. And if that no confidence vote succeeds, then it doesn't go into effect.
Right.
But it destabilizes the government in France, and he's like 5 months into his second term. So it's really tricky. I mean, that one is, I mean, like, I'm thinking to myself, I'm sure he's not choosing this battle. I feel like it was chosen for him, and he has to figure out how to do it. With that said, I think I'd take my chances on Parliament and see what happened at that point, rather than.
And then we have our own crisis of confidence in the banking system.
In these banks, here.
And, you know, these are the kind of conditions that help fascists come to power.
Right. I'd just like to say something about what happened this week with Silicon Valley Bank.
Please.
So the government, the FDIC came out and said, we're going to guarantee all the depositors money. They're not going to lose their over $250,000. Absolutely the right thing to do. 100% the right thing to do.
Yes.
Because they're not guaranteeing executives. They're not guaranteeing shareholders. The shareholders are going to end up taking a bath, but they're basically saying, we're going to guarantee these other deposits that weren't insured. And it's actually technically like they move them into the FDIC guarantee fund, and then that fund gets paid back by whatever assets they can get from Silicon Valley Bank. So the point is, there wasn't a bailout here. I saw so many people saying, banks are bailout again, blah, blah, blah.
It's just like 2008. I'm like, no.
Yeah, and it's not that.
Not anything like 2008.
Nothing like it.
Nothing like 2008.
Silicon Valley Bank worked at Lehman Brothers.
Right. Yeah. And and then Signature Bank. So the one thing about Silicon Valley Bank that you can say is that I think they should go after the main stockholders, the board of directors who sold stock 3 days before that bank was taken over.
Yeah.
That should be something that they definitely investigate and prosecute. But I'd like to say, on the other hand, Signature Bank, which also failed, whose depositors are also going to get their deposits guaranteed. Mm-hmm. Signature Bank, actually, their executives put money in. They bought stock from the bank to get money in to the bank rather than selling it. Mm-hmm. So they were at least trying to do the right thing and keep the liquidity up. But neither of these situations is like 2008. And I get people that say things like, well, it's so fast to bail out depositors, but not student loan borrowers. Okay, I get that. But we have to go through all this. But one of these is not like the other. I mean, if you don't have confidence in the banking system, the whole economy can collapse.
The world economy.
Exactly. So
it's not the same. God,
it's not at all the same thing. And I do understand that resentment that it's not as easy for student loans to be forgiven as it is for depositors to be made whole. But they're not at all the same. They're just different.
No, because you've agreed to take a loan out. You agreed to terms of a loan. And I just can't. I mean, you can be frustrated with the priorities of an administration, but one thing is an emergency situation that, like you've said, a world economy is dependent.
Right.
And another thing to, and plus he's done a lot with student loans.
He's tried.
He's tried. He's done a lot. He's fought in the courts. He's been challenged in the courts, like he said he would be. He knew he would be, and he was right. Yeah. There's only so much he can do. He cannot, as I call them hyper progressives, because I consider myself an actual progressive, but maybe it's more like leftists like to say that, he can eliminate it with the stroke of a pen. No, he cannot. He can't eliminate student debt.
Well, we now know that's true, right? Because he tried to eliminate it with the stroke of a pen, and it went to the Supreme Court.
He got he got challenged in court, and he lost.
No, he hasn't lost yet. He's in the Supreme Court, and
he's at the Supreme Court now. But with this Supreme Court, do you think? I mean, what kind of chances do you think he has?
I think there are some circumstances that might make the justices stay with the student loan forgiveness.
Do you?
Yeah, I do, because I mean, there's the logic that they'll have to deploy would harm conservative causes in government too.
Oh,
Like, so
Consistency's never been something that stopped them.
it hasn't, but,
Amen.
and we can be cynical about it, but I'm going to be optimistic about it and say
Yeah.
that there's,
Well, anyway,
The thing is, no matter what the government did in this instance, they were going to be criticized, and by the same people. And I really want to go after the people that started the bank run in the first place.
Yes.
Same, because they're the ones that actually should be gone after.
Yeah.
If you looked at Silicon Valley Bank investment, balance sheet, they had treasury bills. They were strong investments. They weren't risky. They weren't in mortgage-backed securities or something like that.
They probably should have balanced those investments more.
They could have, you're talking about like when interest rates went up, they should have balanced with, right. Yeah. But again, they would have had to take a loss on the securities they owned in order to do that rebalancing. Right. And that was a decision they made, and maybe it was the wrong one, but it wasn't an entirely bad decision either. Yeah. Unless, of course, there was a run on the bank.
Can you explain something to me that I don't understand, because I don't follow these things all that well? What is Peter Thiel's villainous role in this whole thing?
Well,
I know
he started the run on the bank. I mean, he's the guy that's his founders fund that had 89 founders or something in it, and he told them all to pull their money out.
Start it again.
His founders fund, where he funded like 89 different businesses, and as a condition of their business, they had to keep everything at Silicon Valley Bank.
Okay.
Right? Then he told them all to take their money out. 89.
The next thing you know, $42 billion is withdrawn.
Yeah, Mark Andreessen, he was the next one to do it. I mean, no angel. Let's just.
Who's Mark Andreessen? I don't know who that is.
Mark Andreessen is the guy that made his big bucks out of Netscape.
Oh, okay.
Okay, but he's a big venture capitalist in Silicon Valley, and he also.
He told all his investors to pull out. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
so they started the run on the bank.
People are the reason that Silicon Valley Bank dried up.
Yep.
Lost all their liquidity.
Right. Okay. And they were selling their treasury bonds at a loss in order to stay liquid, and they asked basically for some funds to help them, like a loan to help them keep their liquidity, and they were denied, and that's when the FDIC stepped in and said, no, we're done. Right. So,
because treasury bonds take so long to mature.
Bingo.
Well, and that's what so when they invested the money and interest rates were low, and they invested in long-term treasuries because that's the best return that you can get. That makes sense to do that at that time. Where they made the error, and I'm sure that they're going to have somebody argue that it wasn't an error. Was that they didn't buy when the interest rates went up, they didn't buy the higher interest treasury bonds to balance the portfolio. And so they were selling off these long-term bonds at a loss because they were lower interest. Right. So, yeah. So, I mean, no bank could have survived the run that got started.
Right.
No bank with them. So.
Okay. Thank you for explaining that. No, seriously, I didn't know. I didn't understand the connection. I kept hearing that Peter Thiel was the reason, and I didn't understand the connection.
Yep, that's it.
Okay.
I mean, that's who I point to, and he'll get away with that. I guarantee you.
Oh yeah,
these guys will get away without any consequences. I just think that's when I get cynical.
Right.
Well, I mean, I think you're also a student of history. I don't think it's necessary. Like, I don't think it's cynicism. I think it's, I mean, maybe it is, but it's also at least part understanding, the patterns of history.
The worst part was he used Twitter to start everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, he tweeted it to the world, and so you think people that followed him that weren't even investors there got nervous. And I mean, that's what fear is a powerful emotion. It's a much more powerful emotion than anything else, than optimism. I felt fear when I heard about Silicon Valley Bank failing. I'm like, a bank failure like that in the middle of what's a strong economy? What the hell?
Yeah. Yeah, that's bizarre. That's
Yeah.
A weird scenario.
We also know what Peter Thiel advocates. And the man is a fascist.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
He would not, I don't think he'd be adverse to doing something to sabotage the economy if it would mean that his preferred authoritarians get the power.
Get back into power.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I don't think he'd bat an eye at it. I mean, in fact, my theory is, without any proof, is that that's exactly what this is all about.
Yeah.
You know, timing is everything.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's awesome. So anyway, that's the Silicon Valley Bank thing, and that'll go on. But you know, the government is right to do what they did, and I think they've, by doing that, have limited the contagion on this. But there's other fascism that's going on. I mean, we've talked about France, we talked about Thiel, but what's happening in Israel is super scary.
Yes.
Wow. Yeah. I saw a picture of like whole these were protesters now. These were the good guys.
Yeah, the good
guys. But they were like
a lot of them.
Right. The whole like army of handmaids.
Yeah.
Like marching.
Yeah.
That was wild. I mean, I don't think I've ever seen that many people like that. So, but I mean, so there's been people out in the streets in Israel for like months, right? I mean, weeks, if not months.
Weeks at least. And they and people in the army are protesting. They are like, this is not
the usual.
These are not the usual protesters. This spectrum is vast across society in Israel.
Right.
Because, if there's one thing the vast majority of at least Jews respect, it's the judiciary and the process of justice and the balancing of the scales and the like arbitration and the that is the law. It is huge in Jewish culture, and this is Israel, of all places. The citizens of Israel are not going to let the Netanyahu, of all people, like, even as popular as he is among the conservatives and the super uber right wing over there,
but the super uber right wing they're
not going to let him
more and more right wing.
Oh, they resemble our right wing. They're awful. They're awful. They're not going to let him like completely neuter the judiciary. It's just not.
How are they going to stop him?
I don't know. But I mean,
one of the ways you do it is by getting in the streets. I mean, that's a great question. And I think the answer is what they're doing over there right now is a really important part of how you stop them. I mean, they're turning public opinion in their favor. Here's something interesting. Today, I read that this is the first time that Democrats have supported Palestinians.
Wow.
In Israel. Like there's more support for Palestinians right now than there is for Israelis from Democrats in Israel.
I need to leave for a second, okay? I'll be right back.
Okay.
All right. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing.
American Democrats?
A good thing. Yes, American Democrats.
Yeah, huh.
Yeah, I'm not saying that's a good thing or a bad thing, but I'm just saying that Netanyahu has driven some public opinion here.
Yeah,
as well.
Yeah.
And it's not good for this to keep going the way it is. And Israel has been kind of, in my opinion, politically stuck for a long time now. I mean, right? They have election after election where they barely put together a government and then nothing can happen.
Well, before Netanyahu came back to power, they had some sort of, attempted coalition government, and it just collapsed.
Right. It didn't work. Because
they
were trying to do like far right and far left together, and it was.
They were trying. I mean, they were trying. They had, sorry.
Hello, Kitty.
Yes, this is Pip. So, I mean, I totally lost my train of thought now, but yeah, they can't seem to, governmentally speaking, break the grip. They're the equivalent of the Republicans here, the MAGA Republicans.
Right.
Even if if there is such a thing as a reasonable conservative, the ones that have the power are the totally fascist minded.
You've gone too far, though, when Shelley Adelson's wife is saying that Netanyahu's gone too far.
Oh, wow. I didn't hear that.
Yeah. Miriam Adelson's like out there saying, you need to. Yeah, exactly.
Holy moly. So, I hadn't heard that. When you lose the Adelsons.
Right. You ought to think twice about what you're doing. That's what I say.
I just know that I'm part of groups of not conservative politically, but very in terms of their practice of Judaism, they're Orthodox practicing Jews who are appalled and dismayed, really distressed about what's happened because of what I said, because of the way they value democracy, the way they value justice.
Yeah, it's really shocking to see it happen in Israel.
And they're in different cities around the country, around our country, protesting, showing up for protests about trying to, the man who said he wanted to, eradicate this, that city where there was a pogrom, there was essentially a pogrom, an Israeli-led pogrom in this city in the West Bank. And it was beyond jarring. It was horrifying to see. And, we've all been calling, I made several calls to my Maryland senators and representatives, asking them not to let this guy Schmotik into the country. But they did. They let him into the country. But we're tracking his movements and, trying to protest where he's going. It's just, and these are, conservative and Orthodox Jews who are protesting this. So, I mean, when I say the spectrum is vast okay. Hi.
Oh, hi. Okay, that's too funny. Yes. Hi, Kitty. Hi, Kitty. And slowly we get to see you again.
I'm here. It's her world. I just get to exist in it occasionally. Anyway. We have the fascism in Florida going on too. We have tons of that.
Oh,
yes.
God.
Easy segue into Florida with Texas not far behind.
Yeah.
Well, the funny thing
Florida
about
is something else right now.
Ari Melber had some, and actually Nicole Wallace had some interesting guests on yesterday about the, I can't see any of you guys, but I'm.
Yeah, keep talking. We see you. We see the kitty.
The connection between what he's trying to do in Florida and what Texas can accommodate him with, as far as education goes, and what he wants to be allowed to be taught in the classrooms, the connection is strong. Okay, I just have to move her. I'm sorry. The connection is strong because that's where all the. Sorry. I'm trying to make.
We don't have filters here, so you would think that Aliza's picture with the cat, you know.
It's like that lawyer who had a cat filter on.
Yeah. Right.
Aliza is not
an actual cat.
Right.
So what was I even saying? Yes, DeSantis wants it to be called the enslavement experience instead of slavery, right? And there's all these textbooks manufacturers in Texas, because that's where they all are, and they're all too happy to accommodate him.
Yeah.
And this bullshit
teaching about Rosa Parks without
teaching about Rosa Parks without mentioning race.
Yeah.
But I'd just like to say that this has been 10 years in the making.
Of course
I covered the Texas School Board textbook hearings like 10 years ago or more.
Yeah, but there's a connectors, you know, between Texas and Florida. What he's trying to do in Florida, DeSantis is trying to do in Florida is you know, they're fat, they're partners, they're twinsies, and how you know they're simpatico and they're working off each other, like they're partners in this. Like he's, you know,
well,
he's got a real, you know, assistant in Texas with this.
It's not just the two of them. You know, there's a reason why you've got the same model legislation throughout all the red states. That just kind
that's ALEC. Yeah.
I mean, but they all coordinate with one another.
Yeah.
Right.
It's just that, you know, like the primary producer of textbooks in the country is is the state of Texas, which is a sad, you know, commentary.
Well, it is, because, you know, I thought we had more kids here in California.
I mean, I don't know why that is or how it ended up being that way. But like history is not that malleable. It shouldn't be. That's awful. Anyway.
It is. Well, I mean, Florida it's not just like the textbooks or the whatever. It's Ron DeSantis is really a fascist. I mean, he truly is.
I mean, the private army, you know,
the private Florida army. And we thought Rick Scott was bad, but
he's
Ron
the
DeSantis
without the charisma, though.
That's the thing, right? But you have the media trying to make him into the next replacement for Donald Trump, and it's like, no, don't do that.
Never gonna work. Oh my God!
I mean,
hello,
cat. Hello, kitty.
Well, that's why
my hair's sticking up.
That's why the article the other day that talked about how he doesn't have any people skills and that he eats pudding with his fingers.
Ew, what?
3-fingered pudding dip.
I did not need to know that. I really could have done without that.
Nobody did. But Politico reported it anyway, so we now know it, even if we didn't need to. I mean, imagine just like if you can, right?
In front of your son, you know,
in front of your wife. Yeah. I mean, I need a minute. I'm sorry.
So yes, and that's just like the mild stuff. He really doesn't have any people skills, and he's going to Iowa and he's giving speeches. But that's not going to work in Iowa. I mean, if you read like David Plouffe's book about the Obama campaign in 2008 and how giving speeches didn't cut it. You had to go to people's backyards. You had to talk to them. You had to schmooze with them in Iowa. You had to do all those things.
Politics.
Yeah.
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 And he's not good at it.
You'd be nice to people. You couldn't yell at teenagers wearing masks.
Right.
Yeah.
You couldn't kick kids. You couldn't be mean.
Yeah. So, I mean, it'll be interesting to see. The media is just aching for him to be the next, the next nominee for the Republicans.
And no matter how he behaves, they're still going to build him into that. Because
because they need somebody.
They need somebody, and they don't have anybody.
Right. They don't. I mean, I guess like they had Asa Hutchinson on from Arkansas. Is that where he's from?
Yeah.
And everything. And he's like, good old boy. And he didn't say one way or the other if he's going to run, but I mean, no.
He's not going to, he won't measure up. I mean, he's less.
He'd never get past the Republican primary voters.
No.
I mean, the last person who got past the Republican primary voters was Mitt Romney. And those days are gone.
Yeah.
Those days. And by the way, I thought Mitt Romney was pretty extreme. So back in the day.
Yeah.
I still do, but that's something else for another day. So, you know, the Republican Party, in my opinion, is on their way to implosion, which is what should happen.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, when you have people saying the things that guy said about what's going to happen if January 6th, you know, if they don't get the election on January 6th, it's time for that Republican Party to implode. Absolutely. 100%.
When you have Michael Knowles saying that, you know, transsexualism or whatever it is whatever he said should be eradicated, when he starts using language like that, you know.
But you guys, you know, the party may implode, but you've got all of those people in it who are angry and armed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
They're aggrieved, and they get off on being aggrieved.
And
it's true.
An imploding party may not be the best thing for us.
Well,
I'm sure it's not, but the worst, I mean, the other possibility is even worse, and that's the powerful party.
That's true.
Yeah, it's not, I don't think that whether the party itself implodes is going to have an impact on, I mean, those people are going to exist whether the party implodes or not.
And they've already shown what they will do when they're angry.
Yeah, it's just a matter of who's going to be sending out the orders.
Yeah.
Well, and that's my point, right? Yeah. I mean, then that's what Trump did, and that's why he needs to actually be held accountable for that.
Yeah.
Because it needs to be
and have his phone taken away, you know, like none of this shit. Like who keeps sending shit out from jail? Wasn't there somebody who it's not the shaman.
No, the shaman is now they're trying to make him into some kind of anti-hero or something, thanks to Elon Musk, free the shaman.
Oh God, I know, but I feel like there was somebody who
Sorry, Aliza.
It's okay.
Your kitty cat just wants to be on camera.
Oh no, where did she go? Come back, Aliza. I hope the cat didn't step on her. Oh, she's gone. I'll bet the cat stepped on the... Oof. All right, well, hopefully she can come back.
Hopefully she can come back, or maybe we should just... what else did we have on this rundown to talk about? Nothing very good.
Oh, no.
There she is. Now you're back. Okay. So
I'm so sorry.
It's all right.
That's all right. Okay, Kitty, you stay over there.
I'll keep her off the keyboard.
Oh my goodness.
Did she cut you off?
She did. She cut me off.
Yeah.
I had to rejoin the room. So
you were talking about the trans issues, which is something I actually really do want to focus on for a minute, because they're being scapegoated right now as being all-out war. It is like and when Michael Knowles says you want to eradicate trans people, and then says, oh, I didn't mean, like I wasn't thinking about killing them or anything like that.
No, what I'm saying is that he didn't say he wants to eradicate trans people. It was very deliberate. What he said was he wanted to eradicate transsexualism, right, or whatever the behavior is of, he wanted
from society.
The existence of that, whatever it is. And that is very reminiscent and parallel to the language of genocide. Yeah.
Right.
And it's really parallel to the language that Hitler used.
Yes.
To talk about, he talked about the Jewish problem. Yep. He didn't talk about killing Jews. He talked about how do we take care of the Jewish problem.
Right.
Right.
And so he puts it in people's head that Jews are a problem and that they need to be the problem needs to be eliminated, but that is exactly the same language.
Yeah.
By saying transsexualism needs to be eradicated, that puts the thought in people's heads that trans people need to be eradicated.
That's why it was so disturbing.
It was disturbing.
It was so disturbing.
And I just like to say to the good people of Florida that I'd like pastors to stop abusing children.
Hear, hear.
You know, evangelical pastors. I'd like that to stop too. And that behavior to stop. So, you know, and that to me is very much more detrimental to society than trans people are. I'm sorry. I mean, and you know what? Report after report after report. I have somebody, I read somebody's blog that basically keeps up on all this, comes out of Florida. The pastors in Florida love to abuse their kids.
Oh, so is it something particular to Florida?
No, Texas has its problems too, but I mean, it's a disease in these areas, in my opinion. And, you know, so don't talk to me about eliminating behaviors of people that aren't hurting anybody. They aren't hurting anybody.
Nope, it's not.
Leave them alone. God. Anyway, that's all I had to say.
It not just that though. I mean, I'm trying to find a statistic that a friend of mine posted about it. Oh, here it is. You talked about pastors, evangelical pastors. 10 Boy Scouts a day from 1994 to 2022.
Were
10 Boy Scouts a day were assaulted, sexually assaulted.
That's a horrifying statistic.
It is a horrifying statistic.
So he's like, don't even speak to me about anything else.
Right.
Yeah.
We want, when all child abuse is eradicated, we can talk about other things, but until then, no.
And that's the thing, like I put something on Facebook about, there's this meme going around that, you know, people love to say, and there are several different versions of it where you see, you know, some like it hot and Tony Curtis and, you know, Bugs Bunny dressed as a woman, and you know, like, and the gist of it is you've been entertained by people in drag your whole life. What's the problem now, right? But that bothers me because, those people are in drag to be a punchline. Like that's not a good argument to me, and that doesn't help trans people.
No.
And I really want the point to be like, that's not a good argument to say, well, Bugs Bunny did it. So you liked it when Bugs Bunny did it. So what's your problem with trans people now? That's a stupid argument.
It is a stupid argument.
My argument is, who is it hurting? Like when someone who is assigned, you know, a male identity at birth decides they're not a male, or decides that they are more true to themselves when they wear arbitrarily societally defined female clothes. You know, if they want to wear a skirt or makeup in the office or heels or whatever, and that's more reflective of their true selves. They're not hiding hiding who they are when they wear, alleged, male clothing. That's more suppressing who they are than if they were to express themselves, their genuine identities, by wearing like Barry Brandon or, whatever, like, wearing a skirt, wearing makeup. That's their true selves. And that's a different thing that we need people to be okay with.
Yeah.
We need people to be, this isn't Tootsie where we're laughing at the fact that, look at Dustin Hoffman shaving his legs. Ha ha. Look how funny it is to see a man wearing high heels. Like that's not the,
well, that's also not the point of Tootsie.
That wasn't the point of Tootsie. Yeah. But you know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying?
You know what? There's a difference too between drag for entertainment and a drag show.
Right. And but even people who, not everybody who performs as a drag artist is there are cis people who perform as drag artists.
Right. And that's the point of the comedians.
And that's okay too. But like the point is, and that's why drag performers aren't harming anyone either.
Right.
But the
it's
whole
entertainment.
My point is that there's nothing wrong with any of it.
No. As long as you're not hurting other people, you can.
Who is it hurting? People need to be okay with a person who has a penis attached to them deciding that their true self involves wearing makeup or wearing heels or wearing whatever, or a person with a vagina attached to them, wants to take hormones so that they can grow facial hair and have a mustache. And that kind of thing is, has got to be, truer expressions of themselves. It's harming no one. And Christianity is one of the few religions that does not, that has this binary. Like in Judaism, there's a lot of language that describes all the different alternatives. A person with two X chromosomes who has the spirit of a male or there's all these different words assigned. And there's, in Native American culture or indigenous culture, there are very, respectful and revered spirits that have combined genders, different levels on the spectrum of gender fluidity. And there's nothing, it's just part of life.
This is too vast and complex a topic for us to have tackled in the last 5 minutes of our time.
There's a great map that I think I saved that I'm gonna show you places all over the world that I'll put on our MOMocrats Facebook page that has
that'd be great.
Societies that have all these, like, way more than just the binary.
Yeah.
I'll find it and I'll put it there.
And
Should we end with Putin? Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, that is some good. Yeah.
I was just going to say, should we end on an up note with Putin being indicted by the International Criminal Court for his kidnapping Ukrainian children?
Which isn't a high note, but Putin being a wanted man.
That's a high note.
He
can't leave. He's not going to be able to leave Russia. So that's something that's awesome. So, yeah.
So where would he go? I mean,
well, he'll stay in Mother Russia, but he'll be diminished.
Yeah.
I'm all for that.
He gets smaller every day. So
indeed.
So there you go.
Yeah.
Happy St. Patrick's Day, ladies.
Happy St. Patrick's Day.
Happy St. Patrick's Day.
Happy St. Patrick's Day.
That is our show for this week. Join us next Friday on YouTube, momocrats.buzzsprout.com, or on your favorite podcast service, such as iTunes, Google, and Amazon Music. And be sure to check our Facebook page for that map that Aliza's talking about.
Yes, I'm going to do that.
This is Donna Schwartz Mills with Aliza and Karoli, and we're saying goodbye.
And Dip.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Mama Chat is part of the DemCast family of podcasts.